And I think that is very, very dangerous for our Prime Minister, knowing the state of affairs with our local judicial system, to ask for that to be the case at a CARICOM level. I've personally been in a court, and I'm going to say this because this just goes to show you how dangerous the court system here is in Barbados. I was in court one day, and two traffic matters came up. One young lady, she was clocked doing 83 with a Swift, and the judge told her, you know, young lady, you could have lost control of the vehicle, the tire could have blown out, this could have happened, you could have run off the road, you could have endangered your life, you could have endangered other road users. 83 kilometers with a Swift. They charged her $350. The next person on the stand was a guy who said he went to work to pick up something from his workplace, but one of the drivers didn't come to work, and they asked him if he would take the vehicle and take some stuff to St. Lucie. He's driving a truck. They stopped him at 93, clocked him at 93 kilometers with a truck. And he explained the situation, and the judge said, you know, you put yourself over so well, you know, CRD. And I sat there and I said, wait a minute. So this truck couldn't have a tire blow. The driver couldn't lose control at 93 kilometers. But a lady with a Swift, she gets charged $350, and a guy with a truck laden with goods, he gets off. So, you know, this goes to explain that we have a current judicial system that is not in the favor of our people. And it's very important for Barbadians to understand when leaders, especially at these CARICOM heads of government meetings, when they're getting together and they're planning things that will work in their favor, okay, that when innocent individuals have issues with government, and when they take government to court, or you know, or any person that is a minister of government or whatever, that they can have justice. And unfortunately, a lot of individuals don't have the type of financial resources like certain individuals to go outside of Barbados. And the last thing that I want to say, if they want to look at things on a different level, we have our lawyers in Barbados who are able to go to other CARICOM countries, and even countries that are outside of CARICOM, because I have, you know, knowledge of, you know, a lawyer friend here who actually went to Tortola to deal with a legal matter, okay? And obviously, Tortola is under British law. So my question is, if lawyers can move around the Caribbean to deal with other clients outside of their country, why is it that we did not develop a system where judges can move around the Caribbean and deal with cases in other countries, so that we don't have the plight of a judge being biased in a case? Okay, so these are things that are very, very, in my mind, are very, very critical. If you want the judicial system to work properly, then I think it's time for us to develop a wholesome system where the judiciary is open and flexible, so that people can have their cases settled and they don't have to deal with situations where, you know, court may be biased based on the fact I know a plaintiff or someone is related to me, or you know, we have business together or whatever. I think it's time for the judiciary to function well enough that the people have their cases settled, and settled in a timely manner, so that we don't have, you know, a lot of this mental state and pressure that people are under. Many times it's also because of what's happening in the courts, the unfair levels that they're seeing. So I think it's very, very, very important right now for, you know, our Prime Minister to be very, very careful when they're sitting and strategizing ways that may impede the proper flow of justice to their citizens. And that's what I want to bring up here tonight in my first point.
Our next segment, because we don't have much time, and we're going to talk now about the borders. All right.
Yeah.
And then we go into China. Is that how we are going to do it?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I just want to tell Miss about one thing though about that so-called Fort Lauderdale here in Barbados. Millie never made it to Brazil, by the way, according to the song. So you never know. So yeah, according to that, that local Fort Lauderdale song, Millie never made it to Brazil. I don't think a lot of people know that. That song is actually the scene of a crime, of a murder. Yeah. So she never made it. She never made it to Brazil. So who knows?
Who
Probably
knows?
a
Who
minister
knows?
didn't make it to Brazil either. So we'll see. Yes, ma'am. Let's move on. I just wanted to say that.
Yes, okay. I'm seeing here there's an answer. Look in the chat. It says that VegCo had an official post on their Instagram page stating that it was closing its doors on February 28, 2025.
What?
The question, so your question is whether they're still paying the $45,000. So that's what he's asking. Is the government still paying the $45,000 to that particular landlord? And so the big question is, who is that landlord? Okay. All right. Continue. Let's move on. Apostle.
Mhm. Okay. So that was closed since February.
Yes.
Well,
All right. So we're moving on to the CARICOM free movement. Whether is this a promise or a threat?
sounds to me more like it's like a threat rather than a promise. I think and especially right now we're looking at the fact that crime in Barbados is increasing, and it is a very serious problem across the Caribbean. Crime itself, and not just crime, but violent crimes. And again, if you're looking at um, border security, you cannot just allow freedom of movement because you still have to screen. America is a massive country, and they do everything possible to screen persons that are coming through into their borders. I mean, I was in England early. Was in England early this year, and their security measures are so top notch. You really can't see what's going on. I was standing there, was talking to my brother-in-law, and I was in the hall, and one of the things that I do from watching movies and stuff like that is, I always try to position myself in a place where I can see who's coming in and who's going out. And you look around and you see individuals that are in there undressed, but they're not a part of the passengers who are coming in, coming through immigration. They're part of the security system that's there. And I think for Barbados to recognize that we're on a state where our crime is increasing and we haven't put measures in place as yet to deal with a very high state of crime and very violent crimes in Barbados. I think to want to open your borders right now for a free movement of individuals, I think that's very dangerous. It's dangerous for every single Caribbean country to go in that particular direction right now. So for there to be, statements made like this when there's little dialogue with, the commissioner of police, little dialogue with the commissioners of police from around the Caribbean, little dialogue with, the RSS, little dialogue with, elements that are, designed to make sure that our borders, both sea and air, are safe for our people. To do this right now, I think is absolutely crazy. You want to make sure that the people that you have that are moving around the Caribbean right now are individuals that are coming into the different islands to be a part of the development of the country, not to rob and to hurt and to bring corruption and to continue with their movement of their illegal trades and stuff like that. And Barbados has not yet proven, our security systems have not yet proven that we have a strong grasp on the security of our borders as yet as a nation. And I think that's what every Caribbean leader and those who are in charge of the security of the country, I think those are things that they must make sure, so that when they say, yeah, we can open our borders, that we have the infrastructure in place to wean out those individuals who might be coming in to the country to create chaos. Okay, so for them to say, yeah, we want to go ahead and do that, and especially right now with Barbados and Jamaica, that in my opinion, and Trinidad, that are at the top of the crime that is happening around the Caribbean right now, we have to be very, very careful as leaders to say, yeah, we want to go ahead and open up our borders to, everybody, so that there's a free movement of people around the Caribbean. I think once nations have properly shown that we have a strong security system in place, yes, we can do that. But until, I don't think it's right for them to allow any type of freedom of movement in the Caribbean. As it is right now, you use that to work your way up to having a very, very strong, very solid security element, so that people are not getting away with, the importation of things into the island, exotic animals, drugs, and, dealing with the whole issue of child slavery, human trafficking, and all these things that are prevalent in Barbados at the moment. So, as I said, until we can safely say, okay, we have at least 80 to 90% very strong security network at our ports, then I don't think that is the way to go at the moment. And unless they can show to the public, yeah, we have a very solid system right now that's designed to protect you from the people who would come to our nation and create problems, and forget that whole freedom of movement of people at the moment. This is what has to happen. Barbados must first be safe for Barbadians before they can be exposed to any and everybody just passing to our shores. So there you go. Snakes in the grass, snakes on the plane, snakes on cruise liner, pretty much all over. So we got to make sure that our country is safe. Well, I'll say this, and I understand the aspect of, work, skilled professionals coming from one country to another. But here's the point. The reality is that we've had situations in Barbados at top levels where the certification that was presented upon interview were fictitious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we're going to do this, then you need a framework that any person that is going has a document from the government, stamped by the government or stamped by the court of that country, that says the information this person is presenting to you is legitimate. Okay, you just can't come in here with, photos of your certification and just be accepted on that merit alone, because you don't want to have a case where, okay, you have someone who's working as a manager here, as a CEO here, and then you find out later on the documents that they presented at the interview or that they sent by mail or email or whatever. These documents are forged. These are documents they got some friend to Photoshop for them, and now they're in this position without having the proper credentials. So I think even if you're going to do that, that's why I brought up the point of security, not just a matter of coming in and making sure, okay, on arrival that you're legit, you got all your stuff in place, but making sure that CARICOM governments say to a person, for instance, if someone is coming to Barbados to be the manager, they've applied for managerial position at a bank When you come to Barbados, you have documentation from your previous workplace, but then you also have a special document that says to us here in Barbados, you've gone through all the necessary channels with the government, the government of the country you're coming from. And this is the documentation from Trinidad. This is the documentation from the government of Jamaica that says, yes, this person came to us. They've gone through the proper channels of application to work in your country. This is our seal, governmental document, stamp, signed by whoever, registrar of the court, whoever says the person has gone through the process, not just show up in the country and just hoping that, some documentations that I have, some certificates that I have, are enough to make sure that I get the job. So when I talk about security, I'm not just talking, about the seaport and the airport, but right across the board so that the system works better, so you don't have individuals slipping through the cracks. I know of one situation here at the very QAH that I was told that an individual came here, assumed a particular position and worked here and then left, and then finally found out that the certification was not up to date. It was forged. So you don't want to have that type of operation, even if you're talking about, someone who is skilled. Make sure that the system is working so that the people who are coming here to work, they're following a certain level
Correct.
of protocol, and they're operating properly within a framework that allows safety to the country that they're going into work, so that they're not bringing some type of underhanded operation with them, and then they can move to allow some other person to slip in because they were able to get in without the necessary security framework in place. So that's one of the reasons why I brought up the area of security.
Yeah, earlier, probably Sunday, to deal with China.
Probably. I was just saying, in relation to a lot of what's happening here in Barbados right now is really showing that we're not prepared for what we think would benefit us. We're not prepared as a country right now, honestly. And the activity of this government, and from what you're hearing, shows us if you don't even have a chair for a visitor, you're not ready. You're not prepared. This is just a fool's paradise. This is crazy. So let me just make the statement that I wanted to make, and this goes back to the first group of Ghanaian nurses that came to Barbados during COVID, to show you, and this is actual information from individuals present within that framework. Not one of those Ghanaian nurses came here with correct credentials, and not one of them had medicals when they landed in Barbados.
Oh, really?
Not one of them had medicals. All of their medicals were done right here in Barbados, paid for by the taxpayers of Barbados.
Oh,
so
they didn't do medicals before they left. They did their medicals here.
They did their medicals here in Barbados. So this is what I mean when I talk about security. If the government is, and you remember you had the hepatitis B, you had all those diseases that were found in them because all of their blood work was done here in Barbados. Not one of them landed here in Barbados with their medical records intact. And the government of Barbados during COVID subjected this nation to people that they lied to the public about, that these people were skilled individuals, brought them here. Listen, right now, as I said a few weeks ago on the show, Barbados is being used as a stepping stone for these folk to go on to England. Okay? I am telling you, even a lot of the nurses that came to Barbados from Cuba came here to train. They were not registered nurses, not all of them. Okay, and I can share some things with you from an individual who is a lady who is a senior registered nurse in England. So the information that I have is not hearsay, is not anything that I trump up. I'm telling you, this is information from the mouth of an individual who is at the helm of what is happening in England and what the nurses from Ghana, both male and female, are leaving Barbados and coming to England and doing. As I said, there was one case where the nurse, the Ghanaian nurse, called in sick, said he was not going to be at work. Day 1 went by, day 2 went by, day 3 went by, and when the head nurse here in Barbados contacted him, he was already in England working. Okay.
I trust me. We are connected to some of them, and I know what you're saying is I believe you because of what we've experienced. So
yeah, I'm telling you, and this is why I said that we need to have governmental documentation from the individual when they arrive here, and then their information must be scrutinized, because you cannot be coming here to take care of our people and you don't have medicals in place and you're not even properly trained as a nurse to take care. And why would I bring so many of you when I know that you're not ready to take care of my people? I can never be involved in anything like that. This is all I'm going to say. I've heard the song, and I think it's a pretty brilliant song if you really pay attention to the message of the song and not so much the cliche. I don't think it's an attack, but here's the point that I want to make. Is Mr. Clark still working at Starcom? Because I know he's employed by Starcom.
I'm speaking about the announcer. I don't, I try not to say, but I believe he's still working there as far as I know.
So let me rephrase the question. Is the announcer still working there?
I suspect so.
Okay. So if the announcer is still working at Starcom presently, then the issue is that it's not about employee misconduct.
It's not about what?
Employee misconduct means that he personally has not broken any of their rules.
So he's still employed.
He's still employed there.
The person who okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the person who wrote the song, the person who is performing the song, is still working at Starcom. And Starcom has banned their song, not him working there. So you have to ask yourself the question, okay? Then if the announcer is still working at Starcom and it's not a matter of employee misconduct, then you have to accept that Starcom is interfering with culture. And Starcom is not created to interfere with culture. There are too many individuals and too many songs that have been produced in Barbados throughout the history of crop over that have spoke about, ministers of government, the prime minister. We had Frandelian saying a word. You remember years ago, Duke Check Edie Shirt wrote a song. These are the things that Sandy did, and he just had a silence so that everybody got to understand Sandy did nothing. You had Sandy saying a word. You had Malik that sang even about, everybody for a cup. And he mentioned that at the end of it, that going after, no one was more for a cup than he. You had so many individuals, Gabby and Griner and all these folk that, did things and said, produced songs that, it's part of the culture, it's part of social commentary. And to get to this place where media can be so forceful and violent against, cultural acts here in Barbados, then something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong with what's happening. To this day, No media house has talked about the plight of COVID. They've not talked about folk who died from the vaccine, the adverse side reactions, not one of them. Starcom, The Nation, The Advocate, you know, Barbados Today. So we have a situation where the media in Barbados is behaving as though it is a member of parliament now under this administration. And we've got to be very, very careful. Okay, I think Mr. Bab just said a lot of the people who would have spoken out for the public years ago, they've been bought out and they're silenced now. But there are some of us who are not afraid to speak out. There's some of us who are not afraid to tell the public, this is what's going on, watch out and be careful. Okay, so you have to accept that if the announcer is still working at Starcom, still gainfully employed at Starcom Network, okay, and he produced a song during our leading up to our crop over season, and you took his song away, but he's still in right standing with you as an employee, then you are interfering with culture. And that's where you have to put that out to them to help them to understand that. And they must stop playing that game of thinking that they have the ability and the right to control what is going on in our cultural element. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, very interesting insight. Our topic tonight is who's really in control, right? We talk about the debt swap, the open borders, the media, where we talked about agriculture. Oh wow, it's been a great night, Mr. Bob. I know you pushed through and you came.
Yes,
And I
yes.
and I appreciate, on behalf of everybody else, I thank you for that. Thank you for pushing through, for coming through, and thank you so much, Apostle. We really appreciate what you guys do. I know it's not easy, but you're here.
We're here, of course.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And thank you so much, Madam Weeks, for inviting us to be a part of what you're doing. Really appreciate that.